Also, Quinton.
Sasa kuna basa
Let us pray. Almighty God, who in your infinite wisdom and providential goodness has appointed the offices of rulers and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of humankind, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor us, your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of such important trusts in this land. Let your blessing descend upon us here in Parliament assembled, and grant that we may, as in your presence, treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory and to advance the good of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. All which we ask in the name and for the sake of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Honorable members, I have one small announcement that is important. I have to draw your attention that there is an error on today's order paper where the date is reflected as Thursday, 26 March 2026, instead of Tuesday, 7 April 2026. Please kindly note the correction. Are there any notices of motion? Before you, I notice that, please take a seat, Honorable Shamu. The numbers are not speaking to our actual numbers. Chief Whips, our numbers are not what they ought to be. Both sides. Can this matter be corrected? I don't want to be drawn to a situation that we have got to ask Sergeant at Arms to analyze presence. There are no committees at the moment. Public hearings are over. Honorable Shamu,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to give notice that on Thursday, the 9th of April 2026, I'll move a motion standing in my name that this House considers and adopts the report of the Portfolio Committee on Foreign Affairs and International Trade on the 2025 first, second, and third quarter budget performance reports from the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Very much. May I take this opportunity to remind you, Honorable Shamu, as Chairman of the Portfolio Committee, that I need that report of all international protocols and agreements that have not been ratified by Parliament, so that we can take appropriate action accordingly.
Noted, sir.
Thank you. Any further notice of motion? Government Chief Whip. I beg your pardon?
A point of national interest.
In my list here.
I gave you 2 papers, one of them.
The other one must be hiding underneath then.
Honorable Murombezi.
Okay, I've seen it. I've seen it. I beg your pardon. Point on national interest, Honorable M. Murombezi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir, for recognizing me, and a very good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Speaker, sir, today is World Health Day, and I rise to remind this House that health is not a luxury, but it is a constitutional right and a matter of national survival. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Abuja Declaration challenged us to allocate 15% of our budgets to health. The Maputo Protocol enshrines women's rights to reproductive and maternal care. Yet in our rural clinics, mothers still walk miles for medicine that is not available, and children are born into preventable risk. Mr. Speaker, sir, if we are serious about Agenda 2063, the Africa we want, then we must begin with the Zimbabwe we need. Rural health care and maternal health are not peripheral. They are the backbone of our sovereignty, the backbone of our productivity, and the backbone of our future. Mr. Speaker, sir, no mother must die while giving birth to life. Mr. Speaker, a healthy nation is a productive nation. A healthy nation is an educated nation. A healthy nation is a secure nation. A healthy nation is a prosperous nation. But without proper rural care, without proper maternal health care, without honoring the Abuja Declaration, without fulfilling the Maputo Protocol, we cannot claim to be building a healthy nation. The Agenda 2063 envisions the Africa we want, but that Africa we want, Mr. Speaker, begins with the Zimbabwe we need. A Zimbabwe where every rural mother has access to safe care, where every child is born into dignity, and where every community thrives because the nation is healthy. A healthy nation, Mr. Speaker, is not a slogan. It is the foundation of our sovereignty, our development, and our... Therefore, I call upon this House, Honorable Speaker, to elevate rural health and maternal care to the level of national interest. We need to align our budgetary priorities with the Abuja Declaration, our legal obligations with the Maputo Protocol, and our continental vision with the Agenda 2063. Let's not act out of rhetoric, but out of our constitutional accountability as well as generational responsibility. I so submit.
Thank you very much, Honorable Murombezi. Well spoken. The subject can invite, actually, a motion to be debated accordingly. I think that would be a very interesting, motion, so that we can reach out to the wider society, wider public.
Thank you so much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. Government Chief Whip?
Speaker, I move that orders number 1 to 13 be stood over.
Number 1 to what?
1 to 13 be stood over until order number 14 has been disposed of.
Have changed goalposts?
Yeah, I changed it because
in your paper here before me, we're
Yes.
supposed to be doing order number 23.
yes, Mr. Speaker, but we didn't know the minister was coming. As it is government day, we thought we should prioritize the minister before we go to
So you want us to do order number 13?
order number 14.
Order number 14.
Yes.
Order number 14. Ministers should liaise with the government chief whip. Well in advance, because it turns out that you may be seen to be incompetent with your colleague on the other side, when in fact you are not. Who seconds?
I second, Honorable Speaker, sir.
Any disagreement? None. Notice of motion number 13, the Honorable Minister. Is it 14? Notice of motion number 14, the Honorable Minister of Transport and industrial structural. Hey. I hope it's meant to be infrastructural development. I have here structural development. Please, staff, let's correct things correctly. The Minister of Transport, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you so much for allowing me to come in. My apologies on being late. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Ministry of Transport and Infrastructural Development is the aeronautical authority of Zimbabwe and is responsible for formulating and implementing national aviation policies. This includes formulating robust legal and policy mechanisms to improve the country's aviation regulatory framework. As such, the Constitution of Zimbabwe provides for ratification of or accession to international agreements through the approval by both Houses of Parliament in terms of Section 372, subsection 2 of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Republic of Zimbabwe therefore intends to accede to the protocol incorporating Article 3 BIS into the Convention on International Civil Aviation.
Sorry, Honorable Minister. What did you quote? Section what?
372, subsection 2.
372. I think it should be
My apologies, Honorable Speaker.
327. Please, I am presiding. Don't take over from me. I'm still existing. Yes, I thought I heard correctly. It should be 327.
My apologies, Mr. Speaker, sir. I believe it was a typo.
Yeah, it should have been typo error. Please proceed.
The Republic of Zimbabwe therefore intends to accede to the protocol incorporating Article 3 BIS into the Convention on International Civil Aviation, which came into force on the 1st of October 1998, when 102 ratifications were deposited with the ICAO, thus representing 2/3 majority of the International Civil Aviation Organization member states. Currently, a total of 157 out of 193 ICAO members have ratified this protocol, with most African states, including Angola, Botswana, Lesotho, Mozambique, and South Africa, having done the same. I'll now turn, Mr. Speaker, sir, to addressing the main purpose of the protocol and give a concise description of the contents of the instruments tabled here today. Mr. Speaker, sir, the objective of the protocol is to ensure non-use of weapons against civil aircraft in flight. Use of force against a foreign registered civil aircraft is assimilated to a use of force against the state where the aircraft is registered, and therefore a breach of Article 2, subsection 4 of the United Nations Charter and associated customary international law. Therefore, the interpretation of Article 3 BIS is the most consistent with the object and purpose of the Chicago Convention, which is to promote the safety of all international civil aviation. Mr. Speaker, sir, allow me to emphasize that aviation safety and security are paramount to protecting lives, ensuring smooth aircraft operations, and maintaining public trust in the sector and airspace, encompassing measures to prevent accidents and unlawful interference. The protocol is thus a result of collective efforts of the international community to modernize the legal framework for aviation safety and security. By criminalizing a number of acts constituting new and emerging threats against civil aviation, including certain preparatory acts for the offenses, acceding to this protocol will strengthen Zimbabwe's capacity to prevent the commission of these offenses and to prosecute and punish those who commit such offenses. Mr. Speaker, sir, in the event that a breach in the airspace by violators occurs, the protocol gives a legal basis for functions such as interception of aircrafts to be implemented. Failure to ratify or accede to the protocol thus means that interception of such aircrafts will not be supported at law. Further, failure to accede to the protocol in turn means that Zimbabwe will not be able to apply the provisions of the protocol when concluding air service agreements with other states, especially those that are party to the protocol. Not only does this negatively affect international cooperation, but presupposes that Zimbabwe is not in keeping with its obligations of enforcement with international rules of the air. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would also like to draw the attention of the House to a resolution adopted by the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, at its 25th Assembly session held in 1984. This resolution, known as Resolution A25/1, calls on all contracting parties to ratify the protocol incorporating Article 3 BIS into the Convention on International Civil Aviation. Mr. Speaker, sir, for Zimbabwe to become a contracting party to the protocol, paragraph 4 lays out the procedure which ought to be followed as follows. The protocol shall be open to ratification by any state which has ratified or adhered to the said Convention on International Civil Aviation, and the instruments of ratification shall be deposited with the International Civil Organization. Therefore, for Zimbabwe to be a party to the protocol, an instrument of accession has to be deposited with ICAO. After acceding to the protocol, Zimbabwe shall abide by all the provisions contained therein. Mr. Speaker, sir, after having gone through the ICAO University Safety Oversight Audit Program, it was an audit finding that Zimbabwe had not yet ratified the protocol incorporating Article 3 BIS. The effect of this is that a state is flagged for not providing sufficient safety oversight, thus creating an immediate safety risk for international civil aviation. It also signifies that minimum ICAO standards have not been met, often leading to public notification, increased surveillance, and potential economic or operational restrictions on the affected states' airlines. Therefore, accession, Mr. Speaker, sir, to the protocol is part of Zimbabwe's corrective action plan submitted to ICAO to rectify this audit finding. This in turn will ensure the safe development of civil aviation and deviate Zimbabwe from being declared as an aviation safety and security concern. Mr. Speaker, sir, in light of the above, it is pivotal that Zimbabwe accedes to the protocol incorporating Article 3 BIS into the Convention on International Civil Aviation to ensure that Zimbabwe's legal aviation framework is in keeping with its functions and obligations as established in the Chicago Convention. I thank you. I so submit, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The question before the House is a motion by the Honorable Deputy Minister of Transport and Infrastructural Development as set forth on page 760 of today's order paper. Is there any debate? Is there any debate? Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, on a point of order.
Pardon?
Yeah, a point of order from this MP.
Oh, sorry. I didn't realize we were abstaining. Sorry about that.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to inquire, to check, in terms of our parliamentary procedures, the portfolio committees, like in this case the portfolio committee for transport, shouldn't it be necessary for the committee to be the lead committee in response to the minister on these international agreements? Because I see it as a missing link, because sometimes we then debate from our own point of view, but we have got to specialize the portfolio committees that would guide and help us. I don't know whether it's something that needs to be done or something that is not necessary.
Any motion put forward is subject to debate by all members of Parliament. And, you know, these little gadgets, the cell phone, if you Google there, ICAO, you'll be informed how ICAO moderates on aviation internationally, and you get the agreements there, which the Honorable Minister has addressed, and you'll know in detail which countries have not ratified, including Zimbabwe. So it's open for debate by everybody. So when you look at your order paper, you just check where in doubt, use artificial intelligence. You'll be educated accordingly. So it's open for debate by all members here present. not necessarily those that belong to to the Committee on Transport and Infrastructural Development. Having said that, it would be, I think, appropriate that those in that committee should have first and foremost interest on the subject matter for ratification. Does that answer you, Honorable Shoriwa?
No, it does, Mr. Speaker. It's only that I was actually thinking that procedurally the portfolio committees should always lead in this case. Then, whilst I'm abstaining, Honorable Speaker,
Yes.
These protocols, I think it is important that they are sent in advance. So that
Are you debating now?
No, I'm just asking that they be sent in advance because we are going to ratify this, but most members haven't even seen the protocol.
I thought you understood me. Your cell phone has got all the information. Unless you have got a small kambuzu. Kambuzi. Yeah. Hmm? When I'm confused myself, I use my cell phone to get educated about my ignorance. You have plenty Wi-Fi in your hotels. The only thing is that you need to please check on what is on the order paper and quickly decide where you want to debate on. The Honorable Minister, or is it? There is no one upstanding for debate, so you can move for adjournment on the debate. You can move for the adjournment of debate, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I hereby move for the adjournment of the debate.
Thank you. It has been moved that the debate be now adjourned. Is there any debate? I put the question that the debate be now adjourned. Those who are of that opinion will say aye. Those of the contra opinion will say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed and the debate is adjourned. To what day, Honorable Minister?
To tomorrow, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you very much. The debate is adjourned to tomorrow. Government Chief Whip.
Mr. Speaker, I move that orders number 1 to 27 be stood over.
To 20?
To 27.
To 27.
Yes, until order number 28 has been disposed of. So we are looking for order number 28. That's what we want.
That's you propose to be debated.
Yeah.
Right. Any seconder, please?
I second, Honorable Speaker.
Anyone opposed? None. Notice of motion number 28, Honorable Karenyi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise to move the motion in my name.
Who seconds?
I second, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Where are you?
Yeah.
Ah, is that Honorable Mugomo?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you. I call upon Honorable Karenyi to move the motion in your name.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, I rise to present the report of the 58th plenary assembly session on the SADC Parliamentary Forum, which was held in South Africa on the 30th of November to the 5th of December 2025, under the theme, the impact of climate change on women and youth in the SADC region and the role of parliamentarians in climate change mitigation and adaptation. The Zimbabwe delegation, Mr. Speaker, was led by Honorable Senator Mbowa, the member of the Standing Committee on Gender Equality, Women Advancement and Youth Development. Also the chairperson of the Zimbabwe Women's Parliamentary Caucus and the member of the Executive Committee on ZWPC and the Executive of SADC Parliamentary Forum. The other committees, Mr. Speaker, was on Senator Honorable Chinenza Chigwanzara, Chief Matsio, who is also a member of the Standing Committee on Food, Agriculture, Natural Resources and Climate Action. Honorable Tendai Nyabani, the member of the Standing Committee on Democratization, Governance and Human Rights. Honorable Messi Mgomo, the member of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industry, Finance and Investment, and myself, Honorable Speaker, as the Deputy Chair of the Standing Committee on Human and Social Development and Social Programs. The official opening was opened on the 30th of November by Honorable Paul Mashatile, Acting President of South Africa, who delivered an inspirational and indefinite visual address that placed climate change at the center of the region's development agenda. The acting president underscored the severe and the impact of climate shocks on women and youth, warning that climate change remains a significant threat multiplier existing core socio-economic vulnerabilities. According to the acting president, he urged parliamentarians to be champion on gender-sensitive, people-centered policies, strengthening oversight of the national and regional climate commitments, and accelerating investment in renewable energy development, early warning systems, and foster climate resilience livelihoods. Furthermore, Honorable Mashatile stressed the imperative of collective action, calling on SADC parliamentarians to drive inclusive, sustainable, and climate responsibility development across the region. In her welcome address, the host speaker, Honorable Angela Tokozile Didiza, characterized climate change as a crisis of inequality harming women and youth. Speaker Didizela called for comprehensive climate change framework laws, gender and youth-sensitive budgeting, and harmonized regional governance to advance a just transition and strengthen climate resilience across SADC. Speaking at the same occasion, Honorable Sitten Thierry, President of SADC Parliamentary Forum, Speaker of the National Assembly of Madagascar, warned that climate change was exacerbating poverty, food insecurity, and inclusion, especially for structurally marginalized women and young women. To that an extent, the SADC Parliamentary Forum President called on member parliaments to embed gender and youth-responsive climate measures in legislation and budgets, urging a shift from commitment to measurable climate-just actions. From a youth perspective, Ms. Princess Majapelo,
representative of Southern Africa Youth Parliamentarians, stated that young people are living with the realities of repeated climate shocks, disrupted education, and other opportunities. According, she urged the parliamentarians to institutionalize the youth participation and invest in youth-driven climate innovation, emphasizing that young people are leaders in motion within the changing climate landscape. Finally, in giving a vote of thanks, Honorable Ms. Azarel Jolinda, Speaker of the National Assembly of Seychelles and host of the 59th Plenary Assembly, expressed gratitude to the acting president, presiding officers, and all delegation for successful official opening on the climate justice. She reaffirmed the Seychelles' readiness to host the 59th plenary and its commitment to advance regional efforts to mitigate and adapt the impact of climate change on women and youth. Pursuant to the plenary assembly's theme, a highly interactive, educative, and informative symposium on the impact of climate change on women and youth in the SADC region and the role of parliaments in climate change mitigation and adaptation was convened, drawing on practical experiences from across the region in diverse sectors. During the symposium, a compendium of well-researched and comprehensive presentation was delivered by the experts represented a broad spectrum of stakeholders. This presentation provides an articulated of the regional climate outlook and the critical responsibilities of parliaments in addressing climate change. Presenters highlighted that SADC region is already experiencing the diverse consequences of climate change, including droughts, frequent floods, and rising temperatures extremes. These phenomena are eroding livelihoods and deepening inequality within communities, particularly women and youth, who are often least protected and disproportionately affected and remain most exposed to the damaging effects of the climate shocks. A thematic session on small-scale farming highlighted climate change as a threat to rain-fed agriculture, with erratic rainfall, prolonged droughts, and flood undermining food security, household incomes, and nutrition. It was emphasized that women and youth, who constitutes a large share of stakeholder producers, are particularly vulnerable and require targeted support through climate-smart agriculture, access to finance, extension services, and secure land tenure, underpinned by enabling legislation and pro-poor budget allocations. The Queen municipality outlined lessons from recent storm disasters, emphasizing improved early warning systems, strengthened disaster readiness, and operationalization of the Forum on Climate Change. The Toyota South Africa demonstrates how April 2022 climate-induced flood devastation its Durban plant within 1 hour, destroying 4,249 vehicles, shutting down power cuts, water and telecommunications, and disrupting operations of 104 days. The case study underscored the importance of business continuity, planning, public-private disaster coordination, resilient infrastructure investment, and transport communication as core components of climate risk management. Mr. Speaker, I will go to the progress report on the resolution. Zimbabwe reported steady implementation of the 57th Plenary Assembly resolution, confirming progress in regional economic integration, through active utilization of the AFCTA, reviewing of tariff schedules as reforms in critical mineral sector aimed at strengthening value addition and community benefit. The country report highlighted key governance human rights gains, including tougher penalties for sexual offenses, the banning of child marriages, expansion of open prison and rehabilitation programs, and ongoing support on national human rights institutions. Additionally, Zimbabwe reaffirms its leadership in the transformation agenda towards the establishment of the SADC regional parliament. Mr. Speaker, the report also highlighted the social and health sectors. Zimbabwe outlined measures to counter reduced external funding through strengthening domestic health financing instruments such as the AIDS levy and targeted taxes. Efforts to promote women's child rights were reinforced through curricular-based GBV prevention and expanded financial inclusion programs. On the thematic resolution, the country reported progress in digital transformation through the National Artificial Intelligence Strategy, expansion of broadband access, digitalization of parliament system.
Order. Honorable Mshoriwa and your two colleagues there, can you lower your voices? Thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the report from Zimbabwe also highlighted the digitalization of parliamentary systems and implementation of climate smart and green initiatives in prisons. Adaptation of Executive Committee and the Treasury's report. The plenary assembly took note of the Executive Committee's report, confirming that the forum remain constitutionally stable and strategically aligned to the 2024 to 2028 strategic plan, with steady progress in key areas such as model law development, SRHR, and climate-related governance, work and organizational risk management. It further noted the importance of administrative decisions on the public debt, tax areas affecting local staff, strengthen the human resources system, and enhance the operational efficiency in readiness for transformation. The Assembly welcomed the forum's expanding regional influence anchored on the progress towards the SADC model law on prison oversight, collaboration on public financial management, anti-corruption and peace-building initiatives with partners including ICGLRPF. This development positioned the forum as a one-shop parliamentary platform driving democratic governance, peace, security, and regional integration. The plenary noted that all member states have now signed the agreement of the SADC Treaty and that most have submitted commitments on the protocol, thereby creating momentum for its swift adoption and ratification. The Assembly reaffirmed the critical role of strategic lobby group chaired by our advocate, our own Speaker, Honorable Mudenta. In this regard, the Executive Committee report called for the lobbying mission on the transformation to be sustained and intensified through continued high-level engagement with the heads of state governments and line ministries so that the protocol is considered before the 46th plenary session summit for the SADC Parliamentary Forum. Mr. Speaker, I will also go to the motion which were adopted during the 56th Plenary Assembly. The first was the report on the Standing Committee on Human and Social Development and Special programs, the HSDSP committee highlighted significant implementation gaps in the key regional health, SRH, and labor instruments, noting persistent challenges such as inadequate domestic health financing, stored operations of regional health systems, high maternal mortality, rising HIV infections among young women, and this is slowing the progress of the ratifying the SADC protocol on employment and labor. The report also called for stronger parliamentary oversight, harmonized legal reforms, which will also go for the budget allocations and domestication of these frameworks to advance a regional health security, SRHR outcomes and the decent work across our region. The report of the Standing Committee on the Democracy, Governance and Human Rights was also submitted. This report is also slowing the progress in the signing, ratification and implementation of key SADC protocols, highlighting gaps in anti-corruption enforcement, electoral governance and also regional security cooperation. The other report was the report of the Standing Committee on the Trade, Industry, Finance and Investment. The TIFI report emphasizing the need for stronger regional economic governance, urging member states to fast-track the ratification and domestication of key SADC trade, industry, finance and movement of persons protocols to deepen integration and improve competitiveness. The report on the Standing Committee on Food, Agriculture, Natural Resources and Climate Change was also tabled. The committee highlighted that food security, sustainable natural resources management and climate resilience are central to human and effective prison management, noting that inmates' complete dependence on the state heightens their vulnerability on the climate shocks. It warned that recurring droughts, extremes weather, and under-resourced facilities are compound risks to the nutrition, water access, and basic living standards. Accordingly, it called for climate responsive planning and sustainable resource investment within correctional systems. A report on the Regional Women's Parliamentary Caucus was also tabled. They also urged a stronger women-led parliamentary relationship on climate change, calling for gender-responsive climate laws, budgets, and carbon market frameworks that guarantees a fair benefit sharing, which will also protect women's resource rights and which will also expand access on climate finance for women led initiatives across the SADC region. The report on the Committee on Gender, Equality, Women Advancement and Youth Development was also tabled, which also calls for the accelerated implementation of SADC gender and youth instrument through faster ratification, stronger gender-responsive budgeting, and tighter parliamentary oversight to deliver real impact for women and young people across our region. Resolution and way forward, Mr. Speaker. The plenary assembly resolved that member parliaments, through their presiding officers, should engage with the relevant authorities, including line ministries, to expedite the review of outstanding comments on the protocol. Thereafter, they are expected to actively advocate for its approval. It further endorsed the continuing lobbying role of the group led by our advocate, our own Speaker, Honorable Mudenda, which was tasked to engage heads of state and governments to secure the expeditious consideration of the protocol ahead of the 46th plenary summit in August 2026. The plenary, the assembly resolved that the forum should begin formulating the rules and procedures of the parliament in anticipating of the institution's activity upon ratification on the protocol by 2/3 of the member states. Consistent with the resolution of the plenary on the 58th plenary assembly and its focus on the climate justice, the Parliament of Zimbabwe should continue to strengthen its legislative and oversight responsibility concerning climate change. This includes expediting the development of the framework laws that are climate responsive and gender sensitive and youth consideration, reviewing budget allocations related to climate initiative and enhancing oversight in areas such as climate finance, energy institution, food security, and water management, with particular attention to the needs of women, youth, smallholders, farmers, and vulnerable communities. To that an extent, it is heartening to note that the Climate Change Bill, HB 05, is now before Parliament, providing a timely opportunity to align national laws with SADC and global climate commitments and to advance climate smart, pro-poor, and resilient development across all sectors. Parliament of Zimbabwe to direct relevant portfolio thematic committees to systematically follow on the adoption of the standing committee reports HSDSP, DGHR, TIFI, FANRCA, RWPC, and GE YADBI, reviewing the national laws, policies against SADC protocols and model law, to advocating for ratification and domestication of outstanding instruments on health, SRHR, employment and labor, trade, industry, energy, and movement of persons. The third one is ensuring adequate domestic funding of health, SRHR, gender and youth program. Also, to consolidate regional economic integration, the Parliament of Zimbabwe should intensify oversight on the commitment under the AFCFTA and SADC economic protocols, promote industrialization and value addition, particularly in the critical mineral sector, and enhance scrutiny on the public-private partnership, debt management, tax policies, and measures against financial flows in line with the executive committees and treasury reports. The portfolio and thematic committee to report periodically on progress in eliminating non-tariff barriers, improving the investment climate, and supporting a just energy transition, and the deliver inclusive growth and community benefit. Recognizing the importance of financial stability and the forum, the Parliament of Zimbabwe to honor in full and time the increased annual mandatory member contribution, including the 50% subscription adjustment effect on the 1st of April 2026 and 2026, and to advocate within the national budget process for the provisions of SADC obligation. This will reinforce the forum's ability to meet its statutory responsibility, support transformation, and reduce external funding. In view of the economic disruption caused by the climate-induced disasters, including the April 2022 flood and the Toyota South Africa, the Portfolio Committee to explore opportunity to strengthen public-private partnerships in promoting business continuity and planning and climate risk mitigation, resilient industrialization, disaster risk, financial and coordinated emergency responses. Internally, the Parliament of Zimbabwe to mainstream gender responsive budgeting and youth inclusion across all sectors. Also to support the work of the Zimbabwe's Parliamentary Caucus in the emerging youth mechanization, and also the dossier of the plenary Assembly documents. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, the plenary assembly meeting concluded with the guided tour of KwaZulu-Natal surroundings, including the key segment of the historic Comrades marathon route, which showcased the province's rich heritage and scenic landscape. This cultural and educational compound with the host Parliament's logistical support and warm hospitality provided delegations with the truly memorable, dignified close of the 58th plenary session. The Parliament of Zimbabwe commits itself to the full implementation of the resolution of the plenary, which will also be shared among all members so that they will also have an insight and by the relevant portfolio and thematic committees. The 59th Plenary Assembly of the SADC Parliamentary Forum will be hosted by the Republic of Seychelles in 2026 in preparation of all standing committees of parliaments are also strongly encouraged to actively implement and monitor the resolution adopted during the 58th plenary. This will also ensure the submission of the comprehensive progress report at the forthcoming session. Finally, the communique for the 58th plenary assembly is attached as a guiding document in the implementation of the plenary outcomes. I so submit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much for your very comprehensive report. I noted towards your conclusion there. Are you with me? Honorable Karenyi, I'm addressing you. And under your conclusion, you referred to parliamentary caucus. Didn't you mean parliamentary women's caucus?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, the Parliamentary Women's Caucus.
Yes, that needs to be corrected.
Thank you. Sorry, sir.
Thank you. The question before the House is a motion by Honorable Karenyi that this House takes note of the report of the delegation to the 58th Plenary Assembly session of the SADC Parliamentary Forum held in South Africa from the 30th November to 5th December 2025. Is there any debate? Honorable Ngomo?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, say.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, say. Mr. Speaker, say I rise to second the report on the 58th Plenary Assembly session of the SADC Parliament Forum, which was hosted by the Parliamentary of the Republic of South Africa from 30 November to 5th December 2025. I was honored to be part of the Zimbabwe delegation that attended this important meeting. Our presence at the plenary assembly shows that Zimbabwe remains committed to regional cooperation and parliamentary dialogue. It is very important that Zimbabwe has consistently attended these plenary assembly sessions. Through our participation, we ensure that the voice of our people is heard and that we contribute to decisions that affect our region. Mr. Speaker, the theme of plenary assembly, which focused on the impact of climate change on women and youth and the role of parliaments in addressing climate change, was very timely. Climate change is no longer a distant issue. It is affecting our people today. In Zimbabwe, we have experienced severe droughts, unpredictable rainfall, and challenges to food production. These conditions affect our farmers, especially those who depend on rain-fed agriculture for survival. As a woman, mother, and member of parliament, I have seen how climate change is affecting both rural and urban communities. Women and young people are the most affected because they depend on land, water, and natural resources for their livelihoods. When rains fail, families suffer, food becomes scarce, and poverty increases. This makes it clear that climate change is not only an environment issue, but also a social, economic challenge. Mr. Speaker, the Plenary Assembly emphasized the important role of parliaments in responding to climate change. Parliament must make laws that protect our environment, support our farmers, and strengthen our communities. Parliament must also ensure that resources are used properly to support climate adaptation and resilience. I am encouraged that Zimbabwe is already taking steps in this direction, including the consideration of the climate change bill. This will help our country to strengthen its response and protect future generations. Mr. Speaker, I also wish to commend the leadership of Parliament and this delegation for presenting Zimbabwe with dignity and commitment. Our continued participation in these regional meetings strengthens cooperation and help us learn from other countries. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, I fully support this report. It reflects important discussions and resolution that will help Zimbabwe and the SADC region to respond to climate change and protect our people. I support and second this motion. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Any further debate? Honorable Matangira.
Say.
Vanhu vachiri vapenyu here kukitsi yatota.
Takubvisa kiti dzese kuti vanhu vapindewo. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gazirisai.
Ndinotenda. Say.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Ndati ndimurukewo ini ndiisewo dama rimwe chete mukusapota kana kutsigira ripoti yasumudzwa mudare naHonorable Karen. Mr. Speaker, tingatarisa climate change sechinhu chokutamba nacho. Tikacheuka kumashure, pamwe ndo zvakatoita kuti Kalahari Desert inge iripo, Sahara Desert inge iripo, madeserts ese ari pasi rese kunga ari kuno kuti climate inofanira kunge yakambochinja nguva iyoyo. Isu chatotisvikirawo chinhu ichochi. Mr. Speaker, ini ndaifunga kuti tiri kutarisa pachirungu nokuda kugadzirisa atingati masymptoms, tisiri kuinda pachinokonzeresa kuti iyo climate change iyoyi inge iriko. Sei ndadaro, Mr. Speaker, is hondo dziri kuitika paspace geopolitics pachirungu. Vekuzhe vanodawo kudya zvomuno muAfrica, zvikuru sei kuno kuSADC, vanokwanisa kukonzeresa kuti mvura iregere kunaya kuno. Kana ichiuya youya ine mhepo. Ini ndatenda kuti imi, Mr. Speaker, makatoudza dunhu redu reSADC kuti wokoyoyi miramirai mugadzirise zvaakuda kuti tichiisa misoro pamwe chete. Mvura zvaisisiri kunaya isitanga tichirima mabagwe, vanga vari nzvimbo dzagara dzisinganayi mvura, vachirima mhunga, vachirima zviyo, mbeu diki asi dzinopa kurarama. Hongu tanga tichiziita. Mr. Speaker said, ini ndanda kufunga kuti dai tanga tachikwidza giya riinde pamusoro kuti haisi here nyaya yokuti tiri kungopisa moto.
Kukwidza giya kuita sei?
Mr. Speaker said kuti dai tanga tachinyatsoonesa tigadzirise zvinoita kuti tikaita tipe shanduko yokuti kana tichimuruka tichimanya tanga tichifamba ngatichimanyai tisvike. Mr. Speaker said, ichi hachisi chinhu chokuti tingatombotamba kuti tidero. Ini ndiri kutenda kuti nomuono wamuinawo ngatichionai kuti moto yatiri kupisa mumapani pachirungu vanoti vegetation destruction, dai tachigona kuti pachirungu tiite replenish zvanga zviripo, tidzorere pakare. Tozviita sei? Mutungamiriri wenyika, His Excellency Baba Mnangagwa, tinovatenda kuti vaisa muono kuagriculture, kuti mhuri nemhuri dziri kumaruwa ngadzive nemichero inosvika 50 kana 5 kana 100 pamusha wavo. Ukava mutemo wenyika, munhu wese anenge aine bindu raanenge ainaro rine michero inoibva pakasiyana. Magwavha anoibva nguva yawo, maranjisi anoibva nguva yawo, makotapeya anoibva nguva yawo, nemimwewo michero, mamango nezvakadaro. Mumba munenge muino chokurya nguva dzese, ukadya kotapeya unonzwa kuguta. Kana uchida sadza, kana woridya uri kudya shoma shoma, nokuda kwokuti mudura hamuna chikafu chakakwana nenyaya yeclimate change. Mr. Speaker said, namadzidziro akaita vanhu venyika ino, ini ndaitongokumbirawo nedare rino kuti ivo vana vari kupasa kumayunivhesiti kwese uku, tadita wana pavanononzi veagriculture uyai apa, vesoil conservation uyai apa, vanoona nezvemichero uyai apa. Tichirega kudyara miti yakafanana namakamutiri ino kuti iri kumwa mvura yese yapasi, iyo mvura yekunaya isingawandi. Mr. Speaker said, ndahwa kuti honorable Karenye vari kutaura kuti zhara iriko iri kubata vana mai navana. Vana baba vari kubatwawo nezhara, kuenda kumabhawa handi mambara wemusoro, kutya kuti ukaenda kumba kusina chokurya unonotariswa neziso risina kumira zvakanaka. Vana vanenge vakatarira kuna baba, izvi hapana chiripo, unovapei. So ndandiri kungofunga ini kuti iroro zvakare bazi rekurima tichirongana nekutaurirana kuti taakuda mavhu edu, independence rusununguko rusati rwauya, takaenda tikanotema fodya tikafushira madhibha, kwete kuti zvanga zvakaipa. tikarwisana nevanga vachiticheresa makandiwa kwete kuti zvanga zvakaipa. Ndaifungidzira kuti tikaita soil conservation, minda yedu toimaneja, toitarisa zvakanaka, tocherawo makandiwa edu zvakarurama, ivhu rorega kukukurwa richinoiswa munzizi, madhamu akabvisirwa mari nenyika kucherwa ofushiwa, muzhizha toona sokuti dhemu rakazara, izvo rakazara jecha. In English pachirungu vari kutaura kuti because we no longer have contours.
No longer what?
We no longer have the contours in our lands, in our fields.
Standing orders, you know, kana uchitaura zvishona taura neshona. Usaita mvenge usanganisa nechirungu edwe.
Ndatenda hangu
remekedzai rurimi rwamai.
Makandiwa aya anga achinzi cherai makandiwa ane 2 meters chichiita sechibharo, asi zvinezvi ndakuona sokuti minda yakawanda yapera kuinda, ivhu rainda mumadhamu atinofanira kunge tichidiridzira nawo. Ngatichiitai kuti kugadzirisa iyoyi mvura isisiri kunaya nemazvo zvaitibetsera. Moto unongopisa nyika yese inotsva, izvozvo zviri kukonzeresa climate change. Asi ndakupedzisa, Mr. Speaker, ndiri kuti ine ava vari kuputitsa zvomba vaifanira kuti vambotogwawo vamboendeswa kana kuHague kuya uko kunovaudzisira kuti ndimi muri kukonzeresa climate change. Kana zvapuruvhwa namascientist edu atinawo muno, mhepo dzemugungwa umo dzinosumuka dzotaura kuti gore rino mvura iri kunaya yakanaka, vanhu voenda vonotenga mbeu namafertilizer vorima, saka mvura haichauya. Zvakonzereswa nayo vaya. Iri ripoti rauya nahonorable Karenyi yakanaka zvikuru. Ngatiitorei senyika, toitora seyakakosha kuti tizvibetsere, towana zvinotibatsira vana vedu vapone, sezvo takasungirwa zvirango zvokuti mune zvinhu zvenyambwe kudya navamwe. Kanga tityei nemhuri dzedu dzomuno muZimbabwe. Tatenda hangu, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Tatenda chaizvo. Any further debate? Yes, Honorable
Matema.
Matema, yes. Please proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, sir. I rise to add my voice to the report presented by Honorable Karenyi, which is centered on climate change, shocks, and Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to locate my submission looking at climate change as a human rights issue, which is cross-cutting. To the extent that there is not even a single sector that is spared by climate change. And on account of that, as a country, we have a collective responsibility, a collective charge to chart our path going into the future so that we create an environment that is sustainable. We create a people that are resilient in the face of the climate extremes. Mr. Speaker said, building on the recommendations and submissions made and captured in the report, we have attended 1,001 times Conference of Parties at a global scale. I think it is about time that we come closer home and domesticate interventions around climate change and climate change impacts. And the Kampala Declaration that was adopted in January 2025, which is an EU framework that is going to run from 2026 to 2035, is one strong building block that we can count on and build on as a country in terms of the mitigation efforts, in terms of the adaptation efforts, building on our national adaptation plan. Mr. Speaker said, why I submit that we need to come closer home and have our own version of the Conference of Parties that is domesticated. It is important for us across ministries to converge on this very important and existential matter of climate change. I get the sense that we are too scattered and fragmented in terms of the way we are looking at climate change. In the season where we are seized with, when this House is seized with the Climate Change Management Bill, it is time that we need to build on that in coming up with a framework that is domesticated, coming up with a framework that is homemade, that will speak to mitigation that is informed by realities that are obtaining on the ground in our great nation. And in that space, we need to take everyone on board, leaving no one and no place behind, because climate change is cross-cutting. Mr. Speaker said, how do we get our village science to converge with conventional science? How do we ride on artificial intelligence to glean into the future in light of the adaptation that we need to come up with around anticipatory adaptation? We need to anticipate changes that can happen in the future, and we can do that based on artificial intelligence, based on science, conventional science, to glean into the future. But it is also important that we ride on village science, village wisdom, because once upon a time, our very key and sensitive ecosystems were preserved on account of village wisdom. So we need to bring on board everyone, our traditional leaders, taking care of our environment, taking care of our wetlands, taking care of our forests for the greater good. Mr. Speaker said, as we transition from NDS 1 to NDS 2, NPA 4 is very clear in terms of its prescriptions, in terms of environmental management, in terms of resilience, and in terms of food security. We need to come up with a food secure environment, but that security is threatened by climate change. It was well captured in the report that climate change is a threat multiplier, but we also need to look at the other side where climate change is a multiplier of opportunities. and get those two extremes to converge for the greater good? What are the opportunities inherent in the impact that climate change has? We can look at the carbon credit market. It's an opportunity that is presented in the current season that we need to seize as a country going forward, as we go up the scaffold of development from a sustainable standpoint across sectors. Mr. Speaker, let me say, as I wrap my submissions in support of the report presented, that we have collectively a jot, our work is cut out on account of the cross-cutting impact that climate change has, and on account of that, let's look inwards in domesticate interventions around this matter that is threatening humanity. Thank you so very much, Mr. Speaker. I submit.
Thank you, Honorable Matema. Any further debate? Honorable Malenganiso.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I listened to the report presented by Honorable Karin, I was reminded of a writer, Michael Edwards, and the irrelevance of development studies and development gatherings. Mr. Speaker, I heard of the challenges that are cross-cutting, challenges which were well captured and well described. It is the side of solutions I hoped to listen to. Mr. Speaker, mitigation, climate change mitigation in itself takes collective action, not only efforts that are undertaken at a national level can have the impact that is desirable at a global scale. And Mr. Speaker, as Honorable Matema mentioned, that each and every year there are conferences of parties. What is disturbing, Mr. Speaker, is the fact that issues to do with climate finance under the polluter pays principle are negotiated in terms of soft law, but if you check the nationally determined contributions, these are negotiated in hard law. In my view, Mr. Speaker, that is sponsoring and perpetuating underdevelopment. You will realize, Mr. Speaker, that the so-called first world countries developed on a higher carbon footprint, but the negotiations today seeks to curtail any efforts of development, particularly in the so-called third world countries. Mr. Speaker, it is my view that gatherings and forums such as the one attended by Honorable Kore must seek consensus amongst African countries that as we debate, as we engage on a global scale, we must demand that there is climate justice. By the concept of climate justice, Mr. Speaker, those that contributed more must make certain that the $100 billion pledged annually is disbursed without conditions, but to make certain that our women and youth are not only cushioned, but we invest such amounts the direction or the way of disaster risk reduction. Mr. Speaker, a natural hazard does not become a natural disaster. If we are prepared, if our buildings are adaptable, if we have early warning systems, these hazards may occur, but they only become disasters because they find us unprepared. Mr. Speaker, trying to combat the scourge of climate change without proper financing is not an undertaking that we can achieve as Zimbabwe without the global north being forced by hard law to come handy in disbursing the pledges under the Kyoto Protocol. Mr. Speaker, needless to say, climate change, in as much as it is defined as a challenge, as was said by Honorable Matema, there's a lot we can do utilizing local knowledges. Today, if you listen well to what Karen Kore submitted, you hear that we must sort of go the way or the direction of renewable energy. Mr. Speaker says such technologies are expensive, and it is our rural women that are disproportionately affected. Forests that used to be thickets have since disappeared, and these women, Mr. Speaker, face the burden of traveling very long distances in search of firewood, be it in search of water, where they used to have water nearby because of climate change is now far. Mr. Speaker, we must, in my view, as we debate our budgets, realize that climate change is so much a cross-cutting issue. We must, in my view, arrive at a place where water reticulation in itself is given priority. I understand as a response, we have the National Bore Drilling Scheme, to which I'm thankful to His Excellency the President. Mr. Speaker, our aquifers are running dry. As a response, utilizing the dams that have since been constructed, utilizing the rivers that are perennial, in availing water reticulation plants, in my view, will go a long way in addressing the scourge of climate change. Mr. Speaker, with these few words, I thank you and I so submit.
Thank you, Honorable Malinganis. So any further debate? I recognize you, Honorable. Yes, Mapiki.
Maita basa mbatu wechigaro nokuti ndipewo mukana wakadai wekuti ndinge ndichitaura ndoda kutsigira zvakakwana ripoti yaunzwa muno naHonorable Karen. Ripoti yanga ichirakidza kuti kunowa nokushushikana kwakati simbei maererano nokusanduka kwokunze. Takatarisa kurarama zvakanaka kwemadzimai vakura nevechidiki. Ndoda kutenda hurumende yava munangarwa nekuti ndaona kuti zvizhinji zvavakatsenga vari kuSouth Africa sehurumende yeZimbabwe yanga ichirakidza kuti yanga yapamberi panyaya yevalue addition yavataura kuwedzerwa kwohunako kwezvinhu zvedu. SeZimbabwe takanga taenda pamberi. Tine nyaya yekutarisiswa zvakakwana kwemadzimai kwanga kwatoitwa ministry yakamirira izvozvo, and ministry yeWomen Affairs ndatenda nezvavataura nokuti kana tatarisa kunyaya dzeagriculture ndo imwe iri kuita kuti madzimai aone nyaya dzepfumvudza kurima kuno chokuita nenyaya yekuchinja kwekunze. Ndoda kubva ndazoitenda nokuti nyaya dzemagadheni anorimwa zvinhu zvinounza ruomba ndo akaiswa manje manje munzvimbo dzese dzematenganyika, kungave kumaruzevha kana kuti kuno kumatowns. Vanhu vakukwanisa kunge vachishandisa izvozvo. Saka ndoda kuzvitenda chaizvo. Changosara ndochokuti seZimbabwe kuti tikwanise kubatsira madzimai, nokuti ndakanga ndichitarisa nyaya yekuIsraeri. KuIsraeri hakuna mvura yakawanda, kuno kuZimbabwe richiri kuchema zvedu, asi Israeri ine magwenga yakwanisa kuti panyaya dzekudiridzira inge ichishandisa anonzi pachirungu drip irrigation. 400 liters zemvura dzinogona kudiriza hectare. Asi muno seZimbabwe tichine mvura yakati kwanei yatiri kuwana munzizi nezvimwe zvakadaro. Saka zvauda kungoti chete isu timusiridze madiridziro akagara aya anenge asiri kushandisa. Pachirungu vanoti ngatimusiridze mawater boards. Izvozvo ndo zvinoita kuti madzimai nevana vanga vachirarama zvisina kunyanya kushupika zvakanyanya. Ndaitarisa nenyaya yekuDubai. Dubai haina nzvimbo dzinoratidza kuti mabindu manyoro kana kuti nzvimbo nyoro. Asi Dubai inototi mumadhezeti imomo iri kuenda kutora jecha kune imwe nyika youya yoisa mujecha ravanoti sendi remudhezeti wototanga kuwaka nzvimbo nyoro. Saka semuZimbabwe hatisati tasvika kuzvinhu zvakadaro. Kwakungoda chete kuti tishandise pfungwa dzedu kuti panyaya dzemairrigation dzomusiridzwa madzimai nevana vedu vanga vachidiridzira tichishandisa mvura shoma shoma. Pakuda unyanzvi hwakati kwanei iwo hunonyanya wataura yeartificial intelligence. Wakabata nyaya dzekunonzi value addition, kuwedzerwa kworunako kwezvinhu zvedu. Muno muZimbabwe takanga taenda mberi kunyaya dzekuti masauta akwanisa kuwawedzera unako kuti aende kudoro, aende kumukaka, kusanganisa nemauyu, kunana mwenezi, kwaane malula. Saka taifunga kuti mamwe michero yedu yatinayo taakukwanisa kuti tiende mberi semadzimai nevana vaduku vachishanda nema-innovation hubs akaiswa nomutungamiriri wenyika ari kuwanika kuma-university nokumwe kunedzidzo iri pamusoro. Kwakungoda chete kuti semadzimai edu tinge tichienda ikoko kana kuti vachiuyawo kwatiri tichisanganisa uzivo hwedu taakukwanisa kuitawo kuwandudza mberi yavari kuti pachirungu value addition and beneficiation. Zvinoita kuti tinge tichibatsirika nokuti tikaenda mumasango tinokwanisa kuona tsubvu, tinoona shinga, tinoona matohwe, tinoona zvakasiyana siyana. Saka izvozvo zvizhinji zvacho zvine chokuita nokuti hazvide mvura yakawanda. Saka paclimate change tinenge takwanisa kunge tichiwana zvakakwana. Ndaitarisa mubato wechigaro tikaenda kuHwange game reserve. Ndaifunga kuti kuchinja kwaita kunze panyaya yekunaya kwemvura dai tachipinda zvakakwana munyaya yetourism kana kuti kushanyirwa kwevanhu. Izvo zvinoita kuti vose vari vabereki kana kuti vagari wenzvimbo dzakateera Hwange game reserve, dzingave dzakateera Gonarezhou kwana Chikwarakwara, vange vachipinda munyaya dzekushanyirwa nokushanyirwa kwevanhu dzetourism. Dai kuri kunzi vese vane dzimba dzakatenderera ikoko vapuhwe mukana wokuti vavake dzimba dzavo idzodzo dzavanenge vachikwanisa kushandidzana nenational parks iri muHwange game reserve. Vanotora vashanyi vayo vachiendawo kune vanhu vakavakidzana negame reserve vachienda kunorarawo ikoko vachibhadharisa, nokuti vanhu vanobva kuAmerica vane dzimba dzakanaka. Asi kana kunoku vakutaurwa nechirungu kuti inonzi hati, maiswa mubhedha, maiswa hari, vanoziva kuti kwaakushanya. Ukama ihwohwo unoita kuti nyaya tichateera nyaya dzokusimba dzongoti dzokurima nokuti mvura inenge ichinetsa. Kana tikaenda kuChikwarakwara muGonarezhou tine vashanyi vanobva kuKruger Transia Park vachipinda kuno kuya kuChikwarakwara kana kunana Gonarezhou. Vanhu vari ikoko vanokwanisa kunge vachirarama vasingarimi vachitarisana nenyaya dzetourism. Saka ndaifunga kuti seZimbabwe semadzimai nevana vechidiki taifanira kunge tichitarisa kunyaya dzakafanana neidzodzo. Ndofunga pano mumwe mutauro ati chimwe chiri kutikanganisa seZimbabwe, ngatitsvagei miti yatisingarimi yakafanana nemupuranga. Vanonzvera nyaya idzodzo vanoti unokwanisa kushandisa 200 liters dzemvura pasi pazuva. Saka tikasimba tichera mupuranga yakawanda, mvura yedu yepasi inogona kunge ichitora. Ndaifunga kuti ngatiendei futi tione zvinhu zvinotibatsira zvakafanana nekudyara miti yakafanana nemuringa. Vanonzvera nenyaya dzemishonga vanoti muringa une 72 zvinokwanisa kuwanika, mishonga inogona kuwanika kwazviri. Asi vanoziva nezvekurarama kwomuringa vanoti haude mvura yakawanda. Vakangodyarwa vakadiridzwa mvura panguva yekudyarwa, panguva yese unenge usada mvura yakawanda. Saka takuchitora mishonga iyoyo, makwataye nemazani takuitawo tichipeka takukwanisa kuziva kuti magrems akati anodiwawo kuti munhu akadya anokwanawo pane zvaanenge achirapwa nazvo. Ndofunga muringa unorapa zvirwere zvakati wandei, zvamabp kana shuga nezvimwe zvakadaro. Saka ndaifunga kuti seZimbabwe sezvavakanotaura vari kuSouth Africa ndo zvimwe zvatakutarisa kuti ngatichitarisisai zvakakwana. Ndofunga muno muZimbabwe patakatora minda minda yakawanda yairima anonzi macitrus yakanga yatarisirwa pasi. Saka ndo zvimwe zvataifunga kuti seZimbabwe semadzimai aifanira kunge achitariswa izvozvo kuti tidzotsere futi kuti tiise zvinhu zvakafanana neizvozvo kuva nokurarama kwakati kwanei. Nyaya dzokurimwa kwembeu diki dzakafanana nezviyo, mhunga nezvimwe zvakadaro zvaifanira kunge zvichitarisiswa futi zvakati kwanei kuti tikurudzire kuti vanhu vedu vachidya zvinhu zvinoruvumba. Izvo futi zvinhu zvakafanana nezviyo zvakukwanisa kuti vanhu vari kuita makoreji edu akafanana namatopos vanofanira kunge vachipuwa unyanzvi hwekuenda kuresearch, nekuti zviyo zvakadaro kana kuti mhunga yatinayo pachirungu vanoiti generation yekare. Saka tauda kuti pachisimba pachiuya humwe unyanzvi tichishandisa nenge nyaya dzeartificial intelligence dzedu panyaya dzeresearch kuti tione kuti zvinhu izvozvo zvavanokwanisa kuona zvinoita kuti zvirarame zvisingade mvura yakawanda zvirimwa izvozvo zvinge zvichirasa kuonekwa zvichiuchikwa kuti zvione kuti zvibhadhare mitengo yakati kuti kana vanhu vakikohwa. Saka mubato wechigaro panoratidza kuti ripoti yawakaita vari kuSouth Africa seZimbabwe takanga tafamba zvedu matunhu akati kuti zvokuti zvimwe zvizhinji zvacho takungozazisa nokuti takanga tatoupa mberi. Saka ndoda kuti ndikurudzire nokusapota nokutsigira zvakakwana chinyorwa chauya naHonorable Kareni nechikundi chawo kana kuti nevamwe vavo kuti aiwa ngazvisimbe zvakadaro. Zvavakarekomenda seZimbabwe tatopa dhuze pokuti tiende ipapo, nokuti takaenda kunyaya dzokushandiswa kwamadrones panyaya dzeagriculture, takushandisa nyaya zvemasaisai panyaya dzezveutano dzokuti ndofunga pari zvino manji tinenge takuziva kuti kana wari Honorable Karen wapinda musystem kana kuti mukutorwa zvavanoti zvedhata ravo, vanokwanisa kuti kana vakaenda kupi nekupi vachafamba vakatarisa makazi mazibhuku aifamba akatariswa anotariswa nezveutano hwemunhu, vanongopinda muzvisaisai kana kuti mumakombiyuta vakutoona kuti munhu ano chirwere chakati, anoda mishonga yakati, zvinhu zvichitofamba zvakadai. Nyaya dzeresearch ndofunga ndozvada kuti tikurudzirewo kurisechwa kukuwanikwa kwemishonga nokushandiswa kwemishonga, tisingasimbe chete tichimhanya kunotsvaga mishonga yekunze, nokuti magwenzi atinawo muno ari kukwanisa kuti tinge tichitsigirana pautano hwedu, izvo zvinoita kuti zvinhu zvedu zvifambe zvakanaka. Ndofunga ipapo vanoda kutsigira kana kutsigira zvakakwana ripoti yauya. Ndokutendai mubato wechigaro nomukana wamandipa wekuti nditaurewo maita basa.
Tatenda. Yes, Honorable Government Chief Whip.
Mr. Speaker, I move that debate to now adjourn.
2 seconds. I thought she was going to move for adoption. Do we still need to debate it further? Honorable Government Chief Whip. Honorable Karenyi, would you not want to have it adopted?
I think it's up to the owner of the motion, but we wanted to accommodate other business.
Honorable Karenyi, would you want it to be adjourned or you want it to be adopted? I think they've done justice to it.
Thank you, Honorable. Honorable Mutsamurobedzi is insisting that she has something to debate on the report. If you can indulge by giving her just a few minutes.
All right, we can indulge you, Honorable Murobedzi. Is it Honorable Murobedzi? Sorry? Oh, sorry. Okay, so maybe in that case we can adjourn the debate for another day. I will recognize the government chief whip again.
Speaker, I move that debate do not adjourn.
Who seconds?
I second, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. It has been moved that the debate be now adjourned. Is there any debate? I put the question that the debate be now adjourned. Those who are of that opinion will say aye. Those of the contrary opinion will say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed, and the debate is adjourned. To what day, Honorable Government Chief Whip?
Mr. Speaker, I move that we...
Sorry, to what day do you adjourn the debate?
To tomorrow, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. Yes, you may take the floor.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we revert to order number 2.
Order number?
2.
2. Is there any seconder?
I second, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. A notice of presentation of bill number 2, the Honourable Minister of Thank you. Sorry, I beg your pardon. My paper was a bit mixed up. Right, the clerk will read the second order of the day.
Second reading, Climate Change Amendment Bill, HB 5, 2025.
Thank you. I call upon the Honourable Minister of Climate Change and Management.
Mr. Speaker, sir, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Honourable
It
Minister.
is a great honor to rise and present the second reading on the Climate Change Management Bill. The bill before you today is both timely and necessary as it seeks to provide a framework for the adoption and implementation of measures for climate change adaptation and mitigation, with the overarching goal of achieving low greenhouse gas emissions, including the need to balance economic and social development and the protection of the climate system in a manner which supports the realization of the right of all human beings to an adequate living standard and the equitable distribution of the benefits thereof. Mr. Speaker, except where it is expressly provided to the contrary, this bill shall be construed as being in addition to and not in substitution of any other law which is not in conflict or inconsistent with this bill. However, if any other law or section of an act relating to climate change is in conflict or inconsistent with this bill, this act shall prevail. The bill is founded on the principles of sustainable development, which are also the basis of Zimbabwe's Vision 2030 and the National Development Strategy 2, the National Climate Policy, the National Climate Change Response Strategy, and the National Climate Change Adaptation Plan, and the Low Emission Development Strategy. All these documents which the ministry has developed over a period of time. It provides to enhancing adaptive capabilities and building climate resilience regulation of greenhouse gas emissions, facilitates low carbon development technologies and carbon trading, as well as instituting measures to reduce the use of ozone depleting substances in our refrigeration production systems. Mr. Speaker, currently there is no comprehensive climate change legislation in Zimbabwe. While there are various climate change related statutes, they do not adequately address climate change issues. This bill therefore seeks to provide a legal framework for climate change management which cuts across all the socio-economic sectors of the country. This bill sets out the rights that people are entitled to in climate change matters. It also sets out the guiding values and principles that all persons and institutions must adhere to in matters of climate change management. These shall also serve as the general framework within which policies of climate change management shall be formulated, serve as a guidelines for the exercise of any function concerning climate change, and guide the interpretation, administration, and implementation of any other law concerning climate change. Considering that currently there is no comprehensive climate change legislation in Zimbabwe, this bill also sets out functions of the minister, including giving him or her such powers as are necessary to carry out these duties. These functions include, but are not limited to, recommending to government which international and regional conventions on climate change and ozone layer protection Zimbabwe should become a party to, in accordance with the appropriate law and in consultation with the ministers responsible for finance, grant to persons such incentives as may be necessary for the advancement of climate action, and promote and facilitate cooperation and collaboration in climate change data sharing for national and international reporting purposes. Mr. Speaker, the bill establishes the Climate Change Management Department within the ministry responsible for climate change management under Section 3. This department shall be responsible for the administration of this bill through its various units. The bill also sets out the collaboration between the department and the Environmental Management Agency, EMA, in prescribing emission standards that are acceptable and shall be responsible for national reporting and complying with international climate change reporting obligations. Considering the recent prominence and rapid expansion of carbon trading as a global mechanism for combating climate change, the bill also provides for the establishment of a carbon trading unit within the Climate Change Management Department. This unit shall have the role of regulating the Zimbabwe carbon market, including preparing all carbon trading related reports in compliance with national and international reporting requirements. To ensure compliance and meaningful climate action, the bill gives the minister powers to make regulations providing for all matters necessary for giving effect to this bill. The bill also empowers the minister, in accordance with the appropriate law and in consultation with the minister responsible for finance, to incentivize as may be necessary, persons who advance climate change adaptation and mitigation actions. Mr. Speaker, the current global climate financing landscape is characterized by a significant yet highly skewed increase in total investments. The funding is heavily concentrated in mitigation projects in advanced economies, leaving developing economies like ours and climate change adaptation efforts significantly underserved. The bill, therefore, proposes the establishment of a national climate fund to support the implementation of climate change adaptation and mitigation actions as provided for in the national climate policy, strategies and plans. This fund shall also assist with co-financing mechanism to unlock global climate financing. The bill proposes that the fund be resourced from climate change levies, share of proceeds from carbon trading, carbon tax funds generated by the National Ozone Unit, the tobacco levy, and any monies that the fund may obtain with the approval of the minister and the minister responsible for finance. Mr. Speaker, this bill also seeks to provide for the mainstreaming of climate change across all sectors of the economy, and in consideration of the cross-cutting nature of climate change. Every institution, both public and private, that exercises functions that affect or are affected by climate change shall be compelled to integrate climate change in their policies and plans and budgets. Every relevant public and private sector entity shall be mandated to appoint a member of its staff to be a climate change focal officer, serving as a channel through which the entity concerned shall furnish to the ministry information required in terms of this bill. The bill also defines offenses and sets out penalties for non-compliance, which are determined with due consideration of the severity of the offense in terms of its impact on the climate system and the benefits that accrue to the convicted person through the commission of the offense. In consideration of the above, and taking cognizance of the fact that the public welcomed the bill and applauded it as a positive step towards a holistic and comprehensive approach to address the adverse impacts of climate change, I urge the honorable members here present to support the bill. This bill is a right step towards enhanced climate change adaptation and mitigation, and supporting carbon trading and the mobilization of means of implementation. I now move that the bill be read a second time, Mr. Speaker. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. The question before the House is a motion by the Honorable Minister of Environment, Climate and Wildlife that the Climate Change Management Bill HB 5 2025 be now read a second time. Is there any debate? I recognize Honorable Matema, the chairperson of The Portfolio Committee.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to, for the second time, read the report that with respect to the Climate Change Management Bill, HB 5 of 2025, our Honorable Speaker say rush to the general overview of the key points before I go to the clause-by-clause presentation. The general overview of the key points. The following were the general overview of the key points raised in the public hearings. 4A. Civil society organizations submitted that the bill's framework and objectives should be expanded to include just transition, green economy transition, and inclusive governance to better protect vulnerable groups. CSOs argued that this shift would ensure that Zimbabwe's climate actions were rooted in social equity and ecological sustainability. The public emphasized that the bill must adopt a philosophy of leaving no one and no place behind, which includes updating language to be more inclusive of youth and persons with disabilities to replace outdated terminology. 4B, Mr. Speaker, say a major point of discussion involved the built environment, with calls for the bill to recognize that buildings contribute approximately 39% of global emissions. Consequently, there is a strong push for a national green building regulatory framework which would include certification mandates, a national rating system, and energy and water efficiency standards to reduce carbon footprints. Furthermore, communities demanded more agents through the mandate of free, prior, and informed consent, FPIC. This provision is designed to empower vulnerable groups, giving them the legal authority to give or withhold consent for projects of their land, on their land. 4C, to protect these goals, Honorable Speaker say, stakeholders also advocated for significant structural changes to the government's approach. This includes transforming the Climate Change Management Department into a semi-autonomous board to break down ministry silos and ensure coordination across energy, agriculture, and finance sectors. To ensure these efforts are transparent and accountable, there is a push for a digitized national climate change register that is accessible to the public, documenting everything from greenhouse gas emissions to community benefit sharing agreements. 4G, finally, Mr. Speaker said, the transition is envisioned as one that is deeply decentralized by deploying climate change officers to all 10 provinces. The government can support rural communities directly and uphold the devolution mantra. This local focus is reinforced by a proposal to legislate a minimum 40% community share from carbon projects and to ensure that carbon credit benefits are directed down to the ward level. Through these combined measures, Mr. Speaker said, the bill aims to create a low carbon economy that simultaneously creates decent work and eradicates poverty. Honorable Speaker say, I'm now going to the clauses of the bill. in terms of the findings. Clause 1. Short title and date of commencement. Members of the public across all hearings concurred in keeping the short title of the bill as is, which is cited as the Climate Change Management Bill of 2025. Clause 2, interpretation. Mr. Speaker said this clause was so significant debate with cause to expand definitions to align with international standards and local realities. 2A, on adaptation and resilience, stakeholders submitted that these should be redefined to align with global IPCC standards. Resilience should focus on the capacity of social, economic, and environmental systems to maintain essential functions while fostering learning and transformation. Adaptation should be framed as the process of adjusting to climate effects to reduce vulnerability. B, on mitigation, stakeholders submitted that the scope must be broadened to include local authorities, the private sector and communities as active participants in emission reduction and the enhancement of carbon sinks. C, regarding just transition, a new definition is proposed describing a shift towards a low carbon, resilient economy that creates decent work, promotes social inclusion, and eradicates poverty. D, concerning the built environment, new definitions for green buildings and green building certification are required, noting that buildings contribute about 39% of global emissions. E, it was submitted that the definition of data sharing should ensure climate data is shared between organizations and ministries in compliance with the Cyber and Data Protection Act. F, the definition of response measures should be updated to include multilateral measures. Clause 3, Mr. Speaker, says, objectives of the bill. Submissions urge the bill to move beyond departmental enforcement towards holistic mandates. Key additions include A, an explicit mandating of free, prior, and informed consent to empower communities, particularly vulnerable groups, to give or withhold consent for projects. B, establishing a regulatory framework for green building practices, including a national rating system and certification mandates to reduce carbon footprints. C, adding specific objectives for nature-based finance, fiscal accountability, and alignment with the National Development Strategy NDS2. D, mandating community training and education to ensure effective participation in climate projects. Clause 4, application of the Act in relation to other laws. The public welcomed the clarification that this Act takes precedence over other environmental laws, such as the EMA Act, regarding carbon trading and climate-specific licensing to prevent legal overlaps. Clause 5, rights, guiding values and principles. There is a strong push to ensure the philosophy of leaving no one and no place behind is central to the bill. In terms of inclusivity, stakeholders submitted that language should be updated to include youths and persons with disabilities, replacing the word disabled. B, it was submitted that clause 5, 2 subsection D, 5 subsection 2D should be edited to balance development with the protection of climate rights as enshrined in the Zimbabwean Constitution. C, in addition, citizens and residents should be empowered with legal standing to stop activities that damage the environment. Clause 6, general functions of the minister. Mr. Speaker said, submission suggested renaming general functions to the role of the minister. Stakeholder submissions advocate for a significant restructuring of the minister's authority to ensure a balance between strategic oversight and operational accountability. By renaming general functions to the role of the minister, stakeholders clarified that the minister's mandate should be purely strategic. Under this proposed framework, the minister's absolute powers would be curtailed. For instance, key decisions should require mandatory consultation with a specialized interministerial council or an independent climate change commission. This shift aims to prevent the centralization of authority within a single ministry and ensures that climate policy is integrated across the entire government. Mr. Speaker, in keeping with clause 38, stakeholders recommend expanding the minister's power to grant incentives rather than limiting this to persons. The language should be explicit and include entities to encompass corporations and goals. Specifically, these incentives should include tangible financial mechanisms such as tax rebates, duty waivers, and subsidies dedicated specifically to developers and owners of certified green buildings. This would transform the minister's role from a regulatory enforcer into a strategic facilitator of a green economy. Honorable Speaker, clauses 7 and 8, Climate Change Management Department. To avoid ministry silos, stakeholders propose establishing the Climate Change Management Department as a semi-autonomous board capable of working across the energy, agriculture, and finance sectors. The department should have the power to maintain a registry of green building certifications and enforce climate risk assessments for all major infrastructure. Clause 9 to 12, Mr. Speaker, departmental units and decentralization. Stakeholders recommended mandating youth presentations within these units so that, Stakeholders recommended mandating youth representation within these units to bring fresh ideas. Critically, units should be decentralized to the provincial level, ensuring climate change officers are present in all 10 provinces to support rural communities and uphold the devolution mantra. Clause 18, reporting requirements. Mr. Speaker, the proposed 5-year reporting cycle to Parliament was deemed too slow. Stakeholders recommended biannual, a 2-year reporting to Parliament to reflect the rapid nature of climate change. Additionally, carbon credit benefits should be clearly defined and directed to the ward level to ensure local communities benefit in a direct manner. Clause 14, officers and inspectors. Mr. Speaker, the director should be held accountable for public transparency, including the publication of simplified climate reports. To prevent the office from becoming overburdened, tasks should be delegated to provincial officers. These officers must have the power to inspect not only industrial sites, but also large-scale commercial developments for emission compliance. Clause 15 and 16, national reporting, public and stakeholder engagement. Mr. Speaker said, it was also submitted that to avoid a bloated civil service, the department should leverage existing EMA officers through a collaborative framework. Clause 17, register of licenses or permits. Stakeholders submitted, Mr. Speaker, said that the National Climate Change Register must be digitized and publicly accessible. It should record greenhouse gas emissions, carbon trading licenses, community benefit sharing agreements, and the newly proposed green building certifications. Clause 18 and 19, greenhouse gas emissions, data collection, verification and compilation, measurement of emissions. Mr. Speaker said, civil society stakeholders called for a freedom of climate information provision to be explicit within the bill. This recommendation is designed to allow citizens and oversight bodies to monitor the flow and utilization of revenues generated from carbon markets and trading. To ensure that data regarding emissions and financial dealings is not siloed within government departments, but is accessible to the public for independent verification. To support the constitutional right to access information, specifically regarding environmental matters that affect livelihoods and public health. Stakeholders, Mr. Speaker, say issued a sharp warning against the potential misuse of confidentiality clauses by large polluters. They propose that the confidentiality should not serve as a legal shield for major emitters to hide the scale of their environmental impacts or the specifics of their financial arrangements with the state. Legislative safeguards must ensure that commercial interest claims do not override the public's right to know about pollution levels or the distribution of community benefits from carbon projects. The bill should include strict audit and anti-fraud obligations to prevent double counting of emissions and ensure the integrity of the national greenhouse gas inventory. These submissions aimed to transform emission data from a technical administrative tool into a public asset that fosters trust and prevents the marginalization of local communities. Clause 20, data sharing agreements. Mr. Speaker said the current bill was criticized for centralizing too much power within the Ministry of Environment, Climate and Wildlife. Stakeholders argue that the current structure creates a significant conflict of interest as any appeals against departmental decisions or data sharing disputes currently go directly back to the Minister for resolution. To remedy this, they recommend substituting or amending the current clauses to create...
Honorable members over there, why don't you keep your voices down? The honorable next to, there's Honorable Mtseami, and then who's the next one there? The honorable next, you are actually leaning over the table. There's Honorable Mtseami, and then the next one.
Which one?
The following one.
Me?
Not you with the mic on, the one next to you. It's Honorable who there? Huh? Honorable? Sorry? Honorable member, can you please stand up?
Majindu.
Honorable Majindu.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you may take your seat. Please, let's do it quietly. You may go ahead, Honorable Matema.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I will read clause 20, data sharing agreements. The current bill was criticized for centralizing too much power within the Ministry of Environment, Climate and Wildlife. Stakeholders argue that the current structure creates a significant conflict of interest, as any appeals against departmental decisions or data sharing disputes currently go directly back to the Minister for resolution. To remedy this, they recommend substituting or amending the current clauses to create an independent tribunal. This body would have the authority to review ministerial decisions impartially, ensuring that climate governance is subject to the rule of law and remains independent of political or administrative bias. Honorable Speaker, stakeholders emphasized that the mandate for data sharing itself should be expanded to explicitly mandate compliance with the Cyber and Data Protection Act by coupling stricter data protection standards within an independent judicial...
Sorry, Honourable Member, are you still on clause 20?
Yes.
Okay, you may go ahead.
Judicial oversight body. The proposed amendments aim to build public trust, prevent the elite capture of climate information, and provide a clear, neutral legal path for aggrieved parties, such as local communities or private entities, to challenge government actions. Clause 21, establishment of national emissions trading system and levy. Honorable Speaker, stakeholders, particularly from mining-heavy districts such as Buhera, emphasize that this clause must mandate strong and transparent collaboration between the Climate Change Management Department and the Environmental Management Agency, EMA. This is intended to prevent jurisdictional confusion regarding air quality and waste management, especially concerning chemical waste from large-scale mining operations. Clause 22, technology development, innovation and transfer. This is a high priority area requiring more concrete language and examination. The bill treats technology as a purely technical matter, while stakeholders view it as an economic and social partnership. In the context of the bill, technology transfer and innovation are the primary drivers of carbon projects, such as reforestation or renewable energy installations. Clause 22, subsection 1 and 2 allow the department to facilitate the uptake and application of technologies. In Zimbabwe, these technologies are almost always deployed within rural communities. For instance, biogas digesters, solar farms, or forest monitoring sensors. Stakeholders submitted that if a technology is being transferred onto communal land to generate carbon credits, that technology cannot be viewed in isolation from the land and the people. Therefore, the innovation and development mentioned in clause 22 must include a 40% community share to ensure the technology benefits the locals, not just the foreign investor. Clause 22, subsection 2 mentions collaboration with the private sector and development partners. When a private company brings a new technology to a district, such as Mbire, they often create a fund for the community. Without a model trust deed, a legally standardized document, these funds are often mismanaged or remain opaque. Stakeholders submitted that clause 22 should ensure that any innovation or transfer project is legally bound by a trust deed to protect the financial interests of the community. Mr. Speaker, the transfer and application of technology, clause 22, subsection 1, requires physical space. Stakeholders were concerned that the government might facilitate the import and application of a low carbon technology on a piece of land without asking the people who live there. Free, prior and informed consent is the link that ensures that the innovation mentioned in the bill does not become land grabbing. it mandates that before a technology project begins, the community must be fully informed and give their consent.
Honorable members, on my right, you can't be doing that. Honorable members, you're making noise. It's not fair. It's not fair at all. You may continue, Honorable Matema.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Clause 23, formation of liaison committees. Stakeholders recommended expanding these committees to include local residents who understand specific regional climate issues. 23A, there was also a suggestion for the inclusion of the Green Building Council of Zimbabwe for built environment expertise, as well as youth and women representatives. B, a new health cluster should be established within these committees, including representatives from the Ministry of Health, Community Health, workers, and traditional healers to inform climate decisions with health expertise. C, committees must include leaders from affected districts like Chikombezi and Buhera to avoid being Harare-centric. D, committees should provide monthly and quarterly reports starting at the rural level to ensure transparency. Clause 24, control of ozone depleting substances, greenhouse gases and equipment. Mr. Speaker, clause 24 acts as the data source for Zimbabwe's climate obligations. Subclauses 4, subsection F and H require a register of importance and mandatory returns of data reports on greenhouse gases and ozone depleting substances. Stakeholders submitted, Mr. Speaker, said that this data collection be verified and integrated. In practice, this means the digital systems used to track these substances under Clause 24 must be compatible with the National Carbon Registry and the Climate Transparency Portal mentioned in Clause 9 of the bill. This link is vital for Article 6 of the Paris Agreement, which allows countries to trade carbon credits. If the data from Clause 24 is not verified and integrated, Zimbabwe risks double counting, where an emission reduction is claimed by both the seller and the buyer, which would disqualify Zimbabwe from international carbon markets. Mr. Speaker, the connection of levying trucks carrying dangerous chemicals at borders is an enforcement link. Clause 24, subsection 1, gives the minister the power to control these substances, and Clause 24, subsection 4I, allows for regulations on any other matter ancillary to enforcement. Stakeholders submitted that because these chemicals, like refrigerants or industrial gases, are the very prescribed substances Clause 24 seeks to regulate, the government should use its control power to impose levies at the point of entry. The rationale is that the transit of these substances poses a climate risk, and the revenue from such levies could fund the environmental remediation and climate resilient infrastructure requested by communities. Without these links, Clause 24 remains a narrow environmental rule. By including MRV, the clause transforms from a simple list of prohibited substances into a sophisticated economic tool that ensures Zimbabwe's emissions data is accurate enough to back high-value carbon credits. In a similar fashion, the levy proposes links to the administrative control of chemicals to the practical funding of climate adaptation, ensuring that those who move hazardous substances contribute to the cost of climate protection. Clauses 25 to 27, establishment and vesting of National Climate Fund, objectives of fund, monies of fund. Honorable Speaker said, while the fund was welcomed, stakeholders called for stricter oversight and specific allocations. To strengthen fiscal accountability, the stakeholders recommended that the fund should be chaired by the Treasury or an independent board with quarterly public reporting to prevent off-budget flows. B, stakeholders also submitted that specific funding should be dedicated to Zimbabwe-specific climate health research, early warning systems, and local technology development by the youths and women. C, finance must fund health adaptation and loss and damage compensation, such as replacing school blocks destroyed by extreme weather. D, a proposal suggests that rural district councils receive 50% of the funds to finance local climate management operations. D, regarding tax harmonization, submissions suggested that levies should be reviewed against the proposed National Health Bill to ensure cumulative taxes do not become prohibitive. Clauses 28 to 30. Publication of projects financed by fund, financial year of fund, books of accounts, and audit of fund. The bill should be explicit in terms of protecting the fund from being used for general administrative expenses. Furthermore, the Auditor General should be mandated to audit the accounts of the fund every 6 months. Clause 31, mainstreaming of climate change. Honorable Speaker said, stakeholders, including UN Habitat, propose that integration of climate change requirements be expanded beyond environmental impact assessments to include environmental management plans. This ensures that projects or existing buildings that do not trigger a full environmental impact assessment still undergo climate risk assessments. Clause 32, public sector climate change duties. Honorable Speaker says, stakeholders recommend that public sector entities be legally mandated to generate empirical evidence linking their specific operations to climate-related health risks. This duty requires institutions to move beyond general environmental monitoring and instead focus on African-specific vulnerabilities and gender disparities, ensuring that the health impacts on marginalized groups are documented and addressed. Mr. Speaker said, a critical component of this expanded duty is the mandatory development of early warning systems. Stakeholders insist that entities must establish these systems within the specific communities where they operate to provide localized alerts for climate health risks, such as heat waves, flooding, and vector-borne diseases. For these systems to be effective, the submissions emphasized that they must be integrated with strengthened health systems, particularly in rural and under-resourced areas, and supported by standardized data collection. Ultimately, the goal is to ensure that public sector duties facilitate health core benefits, where climate interventions, such as sustainable agriculture or green energy projects, are explicit in terms of how they are designed and monitored to improve public health outcomes and community resilience. Clause 3 to 35. Climate change focal officers' duties of provincial councils, metropolitan councils, and local authorities. Climate change duties of private entities. UN Habitat and the Green Building Council of Zimbabwe argue that climate change response plans for provincial and local authorities must be sector-specific. They specifically highlight the housing sector, recommending that local authorities mandate sustainable construction practices, such as the use of green building codes and certified materials, to mitigate the 39% of global emissions attributed to the built environment. On clause 35, which outlines the duties of private entities, there is a strong recommendation to move beyond a mere designation of existing staff as climate focal points. Instead, stakeholders insist that large private entities should be legally required to employ dedicated climate change officers. Mr. Speaker said these professionals would be responsible for the rigorous monitoring and evaluation of the entity's environmental footprint, ensuring that emission reduction plans are scientifically sound and that the polluter pays principle is effectively enforced through accurate internal oversight. Clause 36, offenses and penalties. The stakeholders' consensus, Mr. Speaker, say is that penalties must be fair but deterrent. A, fines should be proportional to the damage done and not so high that they cripple business operations. B, conversely, stiff penalties should remain for major polluters who falsify data or knowingly cause damage. C, offenders should be liable for additional fines for each day an offense continues. Clause 37. Regulatory powers of the minister. Mr. Speaker says stakeholders from UN Habitat and the Green Building Council of Zimbabwe propose that the minister should have the statutory power to develop a national green building code. This code would outline minimum mandatory specifications for energy and water efficiency, moving beyond voluntary measures which are viewed as insufficient. The minister would be tasked with establishing national green building rating tool and certification system. This tool would allow for the systematic evaluation and rating of buildings similar to international standards like leadership in energy and environmental design or excellence in design for greater efficiencies to ensure they meet high environmental and resource efficiency benchmarks through their life cycle. Mr. Speaker, stakeholders argue that by adopting these standards in the Climate Change Management Bill, Zimbabwe can ensure its built environment is aligned with global best practices for climate mitigation. The primary goal of these powers is to operationalize green buildings practices by creating a clear legal framework for sustainable design, construction, and operation. Stakeholders argue this is essential because the built environment contributes approximately 39% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Yet, the current bill lacks specific references to this critical sector. By integrating these criteria into national building codes and regulations, the minister can ensure large-scale adoption of sustainable practices while fostering a database and tracking system for national environmental compliance. Clause 38, incentives. UN Habitat and the Green Building Council of Zimbabwe recommended that the Minister of Environment, Climate and Wildlife, in consultation with the Minister of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion, provide a specific suite of incentives for those who develop, own or operate certified green buildings. These included lowering the cost of property transfers for environmentally friendly buildings, providing relief on the profit made from the sale of certified sustainable properties, offering corporate or individual income tax deductions for climate resilient companies that actively invest in reducing their carbon footprint, lowering the barrier to entry for green transition. Stakeholders proposed the removal of financial hurdles for importing critical equipment, waivers on duties for solar panels, wind turbines, and energy storage systems to reduce the nation's reliance on fossil fuels. Exemptions for imported eco-friendly materials that meet green building standards and fostering a shift away from carbon-intensive construction. Mr. Speaker said the submission suggested that these incentives should be explicit in terms of targeting entities in addition to individuals. By offering tax credits, rebates, and priority permitting, the bill can transform climate management from a regulatory burden into a strategic economic opportunity, promoting environmental, social, and economic sustainability across Zimbabwe. Clause 39 and 40, international law and public participation. It was submitted that Clause 39 should serve as a bridge for adopting international best practices in carbon trading. The Africa Carbon Markets Forum submitted that Zimbabwe's carbon framework must align with international standards to ensure environmental integrity and prevent double counting of emissions. ACMF submitted that there is a call to legislate simplified methodologies for measurement, reporting and verification, MRV, that mirror global best practices, ensuring that local carbon projects are internationally competitive and credible. Clause 40 must ensure that participation is a continuous process. Policies and strategies should be translated into local languages and distributed to all provinces. Additionally, communities should be empowered to vote and decide on which projects operate in their areas. 5.0 Committee Observations. The following were the observations of the joint committees. These observations reflect the shared mood and overarching expectations of the Zimbabwean public regarding the bill. 5.1. There is a near universal consensus that climate management is not just a scientific or technical exercise, but a social one. The public expects the bill to serve as a tool for poverty eradication and social inclusion, not just emission reduction. 5.2. Honorable Speaker said, a common thread across all provinces was a skepticism of Harare-centric administration. The general demand is for a bottom-up approach where the bill lives in the community rather than in a distant ministry office. 5.3, there is a broad recognition that Zimbabwe must play on the international stage. The public generally supports aligning definitions with IPCC standards to ensure the country is eligible for international climate finance. 5.4, Mr. Speaker said, the most vocal demand was for a guaranteed 40% community share of carbon project proceeds. This is an obvious observation because it appeared in almost every submission as a non-negotiable requirement for social license. 5.5, Mr. Speaker says, stakeholders pointed out the obvious irony of a national bill that is not available in local languages. This has led to the recommendation for mandatory translation and provincial dissemination. 5.6, the public clearly identified that a 5-year reporting cycle is too slow for the climate emergency. 5.7, an obvious but previously overlooked gap was the lack of regulation for the construction sector, leading to the demand for the National Green Building Code. 5.8, Mr. Speaker said, while not always stated directly, the persistent demand for the Auditor General to audit the funds every 6 months reveals a deep-seated fear that climate finance could be diverted by powerful interests if left unchecked. 5.9, there is a subtle confusion among the public regarding where the Environmental Management Agency ends and the new Climate Change Department begins. This points to a need for the bill to be explicit in terms of definition inter-agency collaboration to prevent bureaucratic hold-up. 5.10. The committee observed that beneath the request for free, prior and informed consent is a subtle shift in the power dynamic between the state and the community. The public is not just asking to be consulted. They are certainly demanding the power to reject projects that do not benefit them locally. 5.11. A subtle but emerging observation was the realization that climate change is a health crisis. The request for a health cluster involving traditional healers suggests that the public sees climate change as a threat to the very physical and spiritual well-being of the community, which the current bill treats primarily as a technical or an economic issue. Recommendation 6.0. Mr. Speaker, informed by the observations, the Joint Committee's recommended areas for amendment as follows. 6.1. The Climate Change Management Department should be restructured as a semi-autonomous entity to facilitate cross-sectoral collaboration between ministries. 6.2. Reporting obligations to Parliament should be shortened from a 5-year to a 2-year cycle to reflect the urgency of environmental shifts. 6.3, a legal requirement should be established to ensure that local communities receive at least 40% share of the benefits generated by carbon projects. 6.4, the National Climate Fund should mandate that 50% of its resources be allocated to rural district councils to support decentralized climate initiatives. 6.5, Honorable Speaker said the minister's function should be renamed to the role of the minister and be restricted to strategic oversight rather than direct operational control. 6.6, the minister's decision-making power must be subject to mandatory consultation with a specialized council to prevent the exercise of absolute authority. 6.7, climate change officers should be decentralized to the provincial level, ensuring a presence in all 10 provinces to uphold the devolution agenda. 6.8, the National Climate Fund should be chaired by the Treasury or an independent board to strengthen fiscal accountability and prevent off-budget flows. 6.9, carbon credit benefits must be clearly defined and directed specifically to what level to ensure direct community impact. 6.10, the Auditor General should be mandated to audit the Commission every 6 months to ensure financial transparency. 7.0, conclusion. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, the public hearings have underscored a collective vision for a climate change management bill that transcends technical regulation to become a cornerstone of national social justice. The overarching sentiment from stakeholders is that for Zimbabwe to successfully navigate the complexities of global warming, the legislative framework must act as a bridge, one that connects the country through international best practices and global climate finance, while remaining fundamentally anchored in the lived realities of its people. Ultimately, the success and legitimacy of this legislation will hinge on its ability to remain a living document through continuous public participation, the demand for the translation of policies into local languages, and the insistence on free, prior, and informed consent signify a public that is ready to take ownership of its environmental destiny by empowering residents to decide on the projects that operate within their own regions and ensuring a fair distribution of benefits. The National Assembly has the opportunity to pass a bill that is not only a regulatory achievement, but a profound instrument for national resilience and equity. I thank you so very much, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much, the Chairman of the Portfolio Committee on Environment, Climate and Wildlife. Is there any further debate?
Yes, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Government Chief Whip.
Mr. Speaker, I move that debate to now adjourn.
Who seconds?
I second, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. It has been moved that the debate be now adjourned. Is there any debate? I put the question that the debate be now adjourned. Those who are of that opinion will say aye. Those of the contrary opinion will say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed and the debate is adjourned. To what day, Government Chief Whip?
To tomorrow, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I move that orders number 1 to 28 be stood over until order number 29 has been disposed of.
Who seconds?
I second, Honorable Speaker, sir.
Thank you. Notice of motion number 29, Honorable Mushoriwa.
Order 29, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Who seconds?
I second.
Thank you. I call upon Honorable Mushoriwa to take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to move a motion in my name pertaining to the report on the benchmark visit to Madagascar by APNAC Zimbabwe chapter. Mr. Speaker, say the African Parliamentary Network Against Corruption, APNAC, the Zimbabwean chapter, conducted a benchmark visit to Madagascar, APNAC chapter from 29th of June to 5th of July 2025. The purpose of that visit, Mr. Speaker, say, was to understand the laws and institutions in place relied upon by Madagascar in its fight against corruption. And secondly, to sought to understand the work of APNAC Madagascar in doing in their fight against corruption. The delegation, Mr. Speaker, say, was led by the chairperson of the APNAC Zimbabwe, who is Senator Chief Chikwaka Goromons, who has also been elected as the deputy president of the African chapter of APNAC. There was also Honorable Tisijo, the vice chairperson of the Zimbabwe chapter of APNAC. There was the Honorable Senator Alice Dube, committee member of APNAC. There was myself, the Secretary General of the Zimbabwe chapter of APNAC, and we are accompanied by two staff members, Mr. Nyamuramba and Madam Gutu. The delegation, Mr. Speaker, say, managed to have a courteous call and a discussion with the presiding officers of Parliament of Madagascar, starting with the Speaker of Parliament and also the President of the Senate. The committee also managed to then have a conversation with the Madagascar chapter, and in addition, the committee then went through having meetings with various stakeholders in Madagascar whose mandate is to fight corruption. These are the Integrity Safeguard Committee, the Independent Anti-Corruption Bureau, the Financial Intelligence Unit, the Anti-Corruption Courts, illicit assets recovery agents. The committee, Mr. Speaker, also met with the National Police of Madagascar. It also met with the Human Rights Commission of Madagascar. Then we wrapped our meeting with a meeting with the civil society organizations on anti-corruption in Madagascar. Civic society such as the Transparency International Madagascar. Mr. Speaker, in terms of our observation, we observed that the anti-corruption system in Madagascar is a seamless flow where major institutions work together on anti-corruption cases. This is designed to speed up the handling investigation of corruption cases. Secondly, the anti-corruption agencies of Madagascar, as we speak, are in the process of developing indicators on anti-corruption which will be used domestically. The purpose of the domestic indicators is to gauge corruption internally and compare the index with that produced by Transparency International. Mr. Speaker, you recall that the Transparency International yearly produces an index, and what Madagascar seeks to do is to come up with their own, which they could use to compare with the Transparency International. The government of Madagascar ensures that the officers who work for their anti-corruption agencies are well remunerated to avoid the obvious risk of them being bribed one way or the other. Major corruption cases are related to abuse of public office followed by bribery. The major challenge in addressing corruption by the anti-corruption agents in that country is the impunity, and this puts a dent on public confidence about government's commitment in the fight against corruption. Police officers in Madagascar are required to make asset declarations periodically to the Independent Corruption Bureau as a lifestyle audit mechanism. High-profile public figures such as mayors, MPs are expected to declare their assets when they assume office with the Independent Anti-Corruption Bureau. The policy gaps that we noted, Mr. Speaker, was that Madagascar, just like Zimbabwe, do not have a law that protects whistleblowers and witnesses who report to give evidence in corruption cases. Having gone there, Mr. Speaker, we came up with some recommendations which we felt needed to be undertaken in Zimbabwe. In Madagascar, they have got a thematic committee on good governance, transparency, and ethics to hold government agencies, department and ministries accountable on corruption-related matters other than ethical behavior. So our recommendation is that there be established such a thematic committee in the Senate. In the National Assembly, we already have the Public Accounts Committee, but in the Senate, we would actually then have the thematic committee on good governance. Secondly, that there is need for Zimbabwe to ensure that the whistleblower protection and witness protection bill come to Parliament and become laws. Thirdly, there's a need for ZAC, our Zimbabwe Anti-Corruption Commission, to integrate all agencies that work towards combating or eliminating corruption, such as the Financial Intelligence Unit. In Zimbabwe, the FIU is stationed in the Reserve Bank, whereas in Madagascar it's a standalone, and there's need to make sure that there's collaboration. There's also need for the Judicial Service Commission to consider establishing standalone anti-corruption courts in order to speed up corruption cases. Primarily, Mr. Speaker, is because our observation is that a number of corruption cases take too long to be finalized by the courts, and it then gives an impression to the people that it is a catch and release situation. And yes, we feel that if the Judicial Commission could establish courts dedicated to fighting corruption. Then the other issue is that Parliament should ensure there is adequate budgetary support for anti-corruption commissions, and that includes ZAC, our Prosecutor General's Office, and other related offices that would make it easier. Then the other aspect, we as Parliament, as members of Parliament, when we come to Parliament for the first time, we normally declare our assets. But we feel that all high-ranking public officials should be mandated to declare their assets periodically, so that lifestyle audits can actually be made. Mr. Speaker said, the benchmark visit to APNAC, Madagascar, was highly successful in the extent that when the SADC chapter of African Parliamentary Network Against Corruption held this meeting, Zimbabwe managed to then take over the chairpersonship of the regional board. And when the African board happened, our chairperson of Zimbabwe was also then elected vice president of the continental board. To that end, Mr. Speaker, I'm so moved.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mshoriwa. Is there any... No, sorry. The question before the House is a motion by Honorable Mshoriwa that this House takes note of the report to Madagascar by the African Parliamentary Network Against Corruption, APNEC, held from 29th of June to 5 July 2025. Is there any debate? I recognize Honorable Tobayo. Honorable Tobayo. Are you ready to debate?
No.
You're not?
Yes.
I recognize the Government Chief Whip.
Mr. Speaker, I move that debate to now adjourn.
Seconds.
I second, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. It has been moved that the debate be now adjourned. Is there any debate? I put the question that the debate be now adjourned. Those of that opinion will say aye. Those of the contrary opinion will say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed and the debate is adjourned. To what day, Honorable Government Chief Whip?
To tomorrow, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. I recognize it.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
Who seconds?
I second, Honorable Speaker, sir.
It has been moved that the House do now adjourn. Is there any debate? I put the question that the House do now adjourn. Those who are of that opinion will say aye. Those of the contrary opinion will say no. Honorable members, order. Can we please stop that process there? Please, Honorable Mtodi, can you take your seat? Can you please all take your seats? The decorum of the House should be maintained at all times, honorable members. We are not yet adjourned. I put the question that the House do now adjourn. Those of that opinion will say aye. Those of the contrary opinion will say no. I think the ayes have it, the ayes have it. The question is accordingly affirmed, and the House is adjourned. To what day, Honorable Government Chief Whip?
To tomorrow, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. The House is adjourned to tomorrow.